Alright, so Katie was out working with the animals here just a little bit, and she came inside, said we had a bit of an emergency, so I'm gonna go see what's going on with that. Hey hon!
Hi.
What's going on? Oh no. What are we looking at?
Well, I noticed that the bees hadn't brought out their dead in a few days, so I knocked on our strong hive and heard nothing, and this is the result of it.
Big pile of dead bees.
Yeah, really sad.
That sucks.
I'm not completely sure, but I think what happened is that we left them too much space and they were clustered down into the bottom box and the comb is empty, so they've eaten all their food. They had honey higher up, but it's been too cold and they couldn't get up to it. That's my theory anyway. I also see quite a few varroa mites still. Quite a few varroa mites and hive beetles, which are both detrimental to their health, and this is even after we treated.
Let's see if you get a varroa. So varroas, they look like almost like a little sesame seed, and they're right there at the tip of the tool here. That little bugger right there, that's a varroa mite, and those are terrible for honeybees.
Yeah, they spread disease and they're little blood suckers. Good news is these guys are technically still alive. It's way too cold to spend any amount of time with the hive open. So what we're gonna do is just pop in there real quick, pop the lid open, lay out this piece of parchment paper, and dump some just plain white sugar on there in case they're having the same problem with low food resources right now, until the weather warms up and we can get in there for a little bit longer. And ideally I would like to give this hive some of the leftover honey from the hive that didn't make it.
Yeah, so we gotta do something about it, but cracking open the hive and swapping out full frames of honey for the empty ones might cause more damage than good given the temperature right now. I mean, it's like opening up your entire house in the middle of the wintertime and letting all the heat out and then saying, here, we helped you.
Okay, so we put a spacer right here?
Looks like it.
Okay.
Yeah, I bet there's probably, was it a varroa packs there? The thymol packs?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, see, there's the cluster.
Let's see here. Oh yeah, look at. All right, so we weren't able to get it on camera. It's kind of a two-person deal. But what we did is we lifted up the top super, and we had this little spacer here from earlier in the year. I think when we had the thymol packets, that's a varroa treatment. And we lifted that up, and the cluster, the little ball of bees, was right there. So we took the parchment paper and we put the sugar directly on that, and without digging into it anymore, and hopefully that will give them a little bit more time until it warms up a little bit for us to do a little bit, give them a little bit more help.
These are completely empty, so they ate pretty much all the honey in that whole bottom box, and that's where what was left of the cluster was. So that's why I'm saying I think they actually starved. Insects cannot move below a certain temperature. In fact, we had a couple live honeybees fly out of the other hive, and they just fell right to the ground. They weren't able to move because they're not warm-blooded. So basically the cluster of honeybees couldn't move to the food because it was too cold. We had 4 boxes left on this hive, and thinking back, you know, hindsight is 20/20, but thinking back, it wasn't a good idea to leave that extra space, because that's just more space for them to heat. Just like it costs more for somebody to heat a larger house than a smaller house. Same concept. Not super confident about this other smaller hive making it, because if you remember from our previous videos, that is actually the hive that swarmed, and we had to rebuild it kind of from what was left of this hive here early in the spring, and they just never quite caught up. So I'm actually quite shocked that they're still around while the strong hive is gone. But I did order 1 more hive of Buckfast honeybees for this upcoming 2022 beekeeping seasons. Yeah, and the other thing I think we're gonna do is, I don't know if I'm gonna continue to treat with Apiguard or Apivar. Which one is it?
I think it's Apiguard.
Anyway, the little foil packets with thymol. I think we might go for something a little bit stronger, because this is, I mean, we've given it a half a dozen chances, and while I wouldn't say it was directly responsible for the bees dying, I don't think it helped. I think we just need to change up what we're doing.
Something else I'm kind of noticing around here too is that we're in the shade right now. We're on the north side of our barn, and this is about as much sun as this side of the barn gets during the wintertime. This is basically midday. It's not going to get any brighter than this, and these hives have been in shade. Like, they never come out of shade. It's either dark or it's in shade, and I have to believe that that is contributing to our problems, because they're just not getting enough solar heat to keep them a little bit warmer, give them a little bit more of a chance that they don't have to work so hard and consume so much food. That might be part of our problem. So
even if we moved them, like,
yeah, so maybe a little further back, you can see where the shadow ends there. Yeah, maybe we can do that. I don't know. Yeah, this is like the second place that we had. In the first place we had them was in our front yard, and we had more ants over there, and the other bigger thing is we had a lot of dust. We live on a dirt road, and cars going by would kick up dust, and they would just coat everything, and everything was dirty. Plus, we didn't really like the idea of having the bees so close to the road. You know, we haven't had to deal with theft since we've been here, but who's to say that that couldn't be a possibility? So we were thinking more secure. This is one of the frames that we pulled out of the dead hive. It hasn't been touched. It is completely
and this is
full.
The box right above where they were, where the cluster of bees was. So this entire box is full of honey. That entire box is full of honey. So we've got quite a bit of honey here. You know, the kind of the silver lining of this cloud is we'll be able to extract this honey and keep it for ourselves. We're going to keep a few of these frames in case of an emergency, in case that hive needs them, or a new hive that's just getting started isn't able to forage or has trouble getting started. So we'll keep some of these as an emergency backup, but looks like more honey for us.
Right here, you can see this is the part of the cluster from the dead hive, and you can see that they were eating right up to the end, and they were getting into some of the fresh food, so they shouldn't have starved. They didn't starve so much as they just froze to death. So there's a certain critical mass that bees have to get to stay warm, and if you go below that, then they end up freezing. And I suspect that this is the result of that. They were alive. They were right up to the point when they froze, and they were still eating.
You can see this frame is the same way.
Yeah. So they were eating. They had plenty of food. They just got too cold. Yeah, this is some of the frustrating part of keeping bees, especially in parts of the country that have winter.
And the reason we're even doing this right now is because, I mean, if you leave it in here till spring, mice get to it, other animals get to it, other bugs, ants and things, and it can go moldy, which is yucky. So.
We learned from last year, we learned the hard way that you don't store frames full of honey in your house, or particularly in your basement, because we ended up getting having a problem with wax moths, and yeah, that was kind of disgusting. Decided to save what we could, but since we treated them with thymol, we're not able to eat them, unfortunately. Yeah, the honey. We're not able to eat the honey because we treated it with thymol. So those are going to be saved for, hopefully, for future bees, and to maybe boost the remaining hive that we have. And then with the remainder, some of the dirtier wax, we're gonna try to salvage some of that and see if we can use the wax for some other projects. We've got some candle making maybe we can do with it. Yeah, there's some other things that we can try to reclaim some of that wax with. I always say that if you have livestock, then that means you're gonna have dead stock, and this is one of those days where it just sucks. We spend a not insignificant amount of money every year on the bees, and to have them die, you know, it's a financial hit. It's also like it's a little bit of morale, you know, hit to the morale, because you know we try to do the research, we try to learn each year, and yet we've had very, very little success. We've had a couple decent years of some honey out of a deal, but the bees always die. So, I don't know. Sometimes it makes you wonder, is it all worth it? I mean, yes, I think it's probably worth it in the end. It's just, right now, it's frustrating. Well, we'll take a minute, we'll sit back, we'll reevaluate what's the situation, and then figure out what we can do better for next time around. Try to learn from our mistakes, just like we do every year, and continue on. We already have another hive's worth of bees coming for this coming spring, so that's already, you know, in the books. Hopefully we can get the last hive to survive. If we can, that'll be the first. Maybe we'll even throw a little party for it or something if they make it through the winter. But very, very frustrating. This is the part of farming, homesteading, you know, that isn't glamorous. It could easily be edited out and we could just pretend like everything was hunky-dory, but this is the part that sucks, and this is where the work comes in. Who's going to be the first to go for it? So we fed the bees back to the chickens to give them a little bit of protein. So bees will live on again as eggs, so to speak. During wintertime, it's kind of hard on all the animals around here, what with the cold weather. the chickens need extra sources of protein. Normally they would be getting a lot more protein from bugs around the farmyard, but this time of the year there isn't any. So that'll be helping them, and in turn it'll be helping us in the end. I want to thank you guys for tuning in for our little update here. It's maybe not the best news, but this is part of the whole show. All right, well, thanks again for watching, and we have a ton more projects in the pipeline right now, so I'm gonna go work on some of those other ones now that I've got the opportunity. So I'll see you next time. Breakfast time?